Welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, and we are live tonight. Bob Pompeani here as your ringmaster. We have a lot going on, and we have topics that include the Steelers, a narrow win tonight. They made you use all your seat, the edge of your seat, all the way to the end. We'll also get into the Pittsburgh Penguins and a big win last night against Tampa Bay. What about more playing time for Tristan Jarry in goal? And the Pitt Panthers with a huge win against Miami that might have really hurt their chances to the point where they may not get into the Final Four. And what does it mean for Pat Narduzzi? All those topics and more right here. Here's your panel left to right on your television screen. We have Andrew Fillipponi from the Cochran Sports Show, 93.7 The Fan to the far left. In the middle, my colleague Josh Taylor right here at KDKA. And to the right, outstanding beat writer for the Post-Gazette on the Pittsburgh Penguins, Jason Mackey. So the Steelers come away with a win. This is a bottom line business. They're 9-2, tied with New England. New England makes these games look easy. The Steelers take you all the way to the end sometimes. So I'm interested to get the panel's take on what you saw tonight. Again, they came back. They did what they had to do to get the win, but there were concerns like drop passes, like penalties, like, again, 3 big plays given up by their pass defense. So, Andrew Fillipponi, your overall take on this is what?
Well, I think analytically you look at this game and, you thank the heavens that it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, that it was Brett Hundley who, for most of this game, they turned him into Bart Starr. I mean, when he got the ball back and they went on that drive to tie the game, I was shocked, and a Steelers fan would be mortified by the idea that Green Bay was able to do that. Let's face it, they got aided by Mike McCarthy, who had some unbelievable coaching blunders. So good, bad, and ugly from a win, but a lot they need to clean up if this team is going to win a championship.
I think it comes down to sooner or later, they're going to run into a situation where they're going to have to continue to execute and actually coach better than the other team. And to Pony's point, the reason why they probably have a shot at winning that game, the running back for Green Bay runs out of bounds. I know he's a rookie, but really bad presence of mind to run out of bounds there and give the Steelers an extra couple seconds. That probably saves the Steelers bacon. But at the same time, too many mistakes on offense and too many mistakes on defense. Bob, you mentioned the big plays, and we're seeing them get gashed. Artie Burns continues to have bad judgment. It continues to show. Yep. Plus, not having Joe Hayden is really starting to look like a sore thumb for them also.
Yeah, the Joe Hayden thing really stands out to me. I think that was one of the takeaways I had from this game. Their defense is still very much a work in progress, but also in saying that, I don't buy into, you have to be perfect in week 11 or whatever it is in the NFL. They are a work in progress, and there's still plenty of time to iron out the kinks. A couple takeaways that I had offensively. Look at Ben Roethlisberger. I think, 6 or 7 weeks ago we might have questioned, I don't know how far in this he is, or is he still an elite quarterback? I think those questions have been answered. Antonio Brown, by and large, is the best wide receiver in football. Their offense is coming together extremely nicely. Cam Hayward is a Pro Bowler, having a great year. Just they need to clean up a few things in the secondary.
Yeah, that secondary does need a lot of it. You can't give up those kind of big plays because Tom Brady is sitting there licking his chops. If other teams could do this, if Brett Hundley can do this, what will Tom Brady do? Andrew, I want to ask you about a pregame interview that was done by NBC, and Tony Dungy, of course, has a long-standing friendship with Mike Tomlin, and during that interview, he did something that he rarely does to the media here in Pittsburgh, and that is he looked big picture. He talked about the elephant in the room, meaning New England. He talked about they should win it all. Were you surprised by those comments, and does that go against what he normally preaches?
Yeah, because he did something that I think coaches are loath to do, and that is set a public standard barometer for your team. I can't imagine Mike Sullivan, okay, or Bill Belichick, guys that have won championships, fast forwarding down the schedule. Jason covers the Penguins. Could you have imagined if before the Boston game, Mike Sullivan said, you know what, Tampa is really the team in the Eastern Conference that we need to beat?
I'll stop you right there.
Yeah. So yes, was he candid? Was it entertaining? Absolutely. Was it a bad precedent for a coach to set? I think so. He didn't keep his team grounded with those kind of comments.
But it's only a bad precedent if it doesn't work out. Right? If this works out, this is going to be poetic or something, or I don't know what the fancy word is here, but he's going to have predicted this, and I think we'll look back on this and say Tomlin really spurred this team in the right direction. I love it. I think you should come out and say like this stuff all the time because one, it's insulting as a fan if you think these guys aren't.
Yeah, but you know what though, Jason? I'm going to compare him to somebody. Rex Ryan did this all the time in New York, and
but he had bad teams. They didn't back him up.
Well, hold on.
That's a big difference.
Actually, hold on. He went into New England and won a playoff game, okay, which is something that we have not seen Mike Tomlin or any Steelers team do as long as Tom Brady is in uniform. But is that what you aspire to be? Is that you're going to continually – it's okay for fans and media to do it, but you are going to compare yourself constantly to another team.
Well,
you've got two rivals before you play them, and you're going to look past them and say, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. It's about the fireworks against the Patriots.
I get where he's coming through. Come on, look at the AFC. Is anything else going to happen in your mind realistically other than the Steelers and the Patriots in the AFC Championship game?
No.
They know it's happening.
No,
so
but Jason, we're
we're
talking about a team that has a history of looking past teams, of playing down to the competition. He just fit right into that narrative.
This team also has a history of being held to the standard of one other team in the AFC.
Right.
And that standard is New England. So to address it,
Josh,
I don't think it's a terrible thing.
But Josh, you don't beat those teams when you squander home field advantage by going to places like Chicago and losing.
But right now, he has home field advantage. He has it right now.
But
he had it going into this week.
Bob,
so right now, he holds the cards.
Bob,
so he can make that distinction now because he holds the cards now, having that tiebreaker over New England.
But Bob, do you agree with me now? Let's just address this. That the idea that for the Steelers, every game means the same is complete BS?
Of course it's BS.
Okay, so now, but he leads you to believe. You hear his press conference on Tuesdays. He made the Green Bay Packers this week sound like the '68 Packers. We now know it's complete crap. And his players don't buy into it because the coach doesn't believe it.
Well, I think his explanation was that as a friend we're talking, and I'm sure looking back, he probably would like to have some of that back, quite frankly, given what he's going to say on Tuesday.
Given what happened last year during the playoffs in the locker room when that
exactly. Do you think that
happens too?
Do you think that helped them going into New England?
No.
Neither do I.
No. And that's why Belichick old press conference all the time, but those players in New England will tell you that. So, well, listen, I don't have a problem with the guy saying, hey, we are capable, we should win a Super Bowl. To me, that's not a bet. When you specifically talk about another team that's still 3 weeks away, that is a little bit goes against what you're doing. So I understand that. But at the same time, you better believe it. Didn't Mike Sullivan, Jason, say, I know this is the beginning of the season. Hey, we're good enough. We should contend for a three-peat. We should be a three-peat. I don't mind coaches saying that.
That's a great point, Bob. I don't want a guy who doesn't think that coaching my team. Of course he thinks his team's good enough to win the Super Bowl. I hope he thinks that.
Well, Jason, how about humbling him a little bit, okay?
No. Why? No? What's the definition of insanity, Andrew? Keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. They keep losing to him. Let's change something. Let's do something different.
Have a different attitude. I totally agree.
Poke the bear?
Have a different mindset of going at, instead of saying, well, you know what, we defer to them, go at it from the mindset of, you know what, we got to get past these guys to get where we want to go. And having that mindset, I don't mind it either.
How about this? How about this for an answer? Before we talk about ourselves as the next championship team here, how about we learn how to tackle? Okay, how about that?
Well, they do have issues. I was going to bring that up, and we will talk about that. That's part of their problem right now. They cannot tackle. They're missing obvious. When you do that to New England, when they're going to, it's death by
when you're -3 in turnovers,
picks.
You're not a championship caliber team. Period.
No, you can't do that, especially against a team like New England. However, we'll see when that comes. If they don't win that game and they're sloppy in the process, guess what's going to come back? That comment, those interviews.
How about if they lose one of these two games before that game?
You can't afford to do it. So they know that. And again, when you put it out there, you have to back it up. We'll see what happens. We do have more Steeler coverage on the way. We're also going to talk about the Penguins and their win last night. And what does it really mean? Have they gotten over the hump? They lost 3 in a row, but was their play overall still, needs some tweaking, needs some help? I think it does. We'll talk a little bit about that and the Pitt win against Miami. Try to squeeze it all in with a shoehorn right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.